Right, moving on. Our next guest today is somebody who has been performing at the highest level for more than 4 decades since arriving on scene in the early 80s with a band called Grand Prix. And if you don't know who they are or you've forgotten about them, then go to wherever you stream your music from, or who knows, even buy music, and listen to some of the 3 albums that they produced. Really highly polished melodic rock albums. They should have been huge, but they weren't. Anyway, from there on, MSG, Survivor, File Corporation, the excellent Black Swan with Jeff Pilson and Rhett Beach. Robin McAulay is his name, of course, and he remains a very in-demand performer. And he's got a new album out, and it is called Alive. Now, I caught up with Robin on the eve of its release to talk about the album and his career so far. But before we get into all of that, let's remind you just how good Black Swan are. This is a track from Generation Mind. You were one of the first bands I ever saw as a kid,
Oh my God.
right?
Oh my God. That's pretty sad.
No, I still have, right? I've got a picture disc 45 single, right,
What?
of Grand Prix Keep On Believing. Yeah,
I don't
it's
even have that.
yeah, it's and I saw you at a tiny little club in a place you'll never remember. It was a place called the Granary Club, and it was in a city called Bristol in the UK.
Oh my God.
And I reckon it was probably it
Eh,
has to be. So you're into your fifth decade in the music business, and
Right.
you are. When you look back in the last 5 or 6 years, you are in the most productive time of your entire career since 2018. 2 albums with working with Michael Schenker, 2 with
Right.
Black Swan, and
Right.
2 solo albums as well. So, what's the reason for this creative burst?
There's really nothing behind it. Um, I was just crazy busy. 7 years prior to the pandemic, to COVID, and I was working 5 nights a week, sometimes 6 nights a week, at a Las Vegas residency called Raiding the Rock Vault, which is basically a classic rock show. Um, and that was the brainchild of Simon Napier Bell, who used to marry George Michael's
Yeah, yeah.
and married the Yardbirds, and it was his brainchild, and he basically wanted to put together a quote unquote a band that had recorded lots of records, toured extensively, and then he wanted to sort of bring various members together to to basically do cover songs. But because they had to be original guys that had somewhat of a name, and they could sort of make it legit. So we created a show. The first show was actually 2 hours and 40 minutes long. We made a 3 minute sizzle out of that, which the Las Vegas Hilton got hold of and went, "We love this. Let's shoot for a month's test period or something like that." We went into Vegas, into the old Elvis Hotel. Um, and lo and behold, we get a residency, and suddenly we're like 5 nights a week, and right up to when everything shut down for COVID, we had actually performed almost 1,500 shows,
Wow.
and we had moved to different hotels from, the original one at the Hilton, across to the Tropicana, across to the Hard Rock Hotel, which later got sold and bought by Richard Branson, became Virgin Hotels, Las Vegas, and so I was crazy busy. And then when right before COVID, of course, Schenker had the great idea to um, bring in Schenker Fest, all of the singers together, and suddenly we're like, now we're touring, now we're making records, now we're like crazy busy, and I'm still doing the Vegas show, and then COVID hit, everything came to a standstill, and Frontiers Records come on the scene and going, "Hey, you want to make a record?" And I went, "No." And so I kind of refused, which sounds a little pompous and it wasn't really meant to be. But, Serafino over at the label said, "Hey, we'd love you to make a solo record." And I said, "Why? Nobody will listen to it. Why would I do it? And I have no interest in doing it." And we kind of put it up on the top shelf, or the bottom shelf rather. And a couple of months later, Jeff Pilton's on the phone and he goes, "Hey, Serafino just called me and he wants me to put together a super group." And I started laughing and I go, "Jeff, I've known you for what, 30 years? And you're talking to me about super groups? I mean, is there such a thing?" And he goes, "I know, I hate that title also." And he went on to tell me that Reb loved the idea, Reb Beach.
Yeah, yeah.
And he said, "You're the only singer I'm calling. I want you to do it. I think this would be great." And we started writing, and before you know it, Standing on the Edge or Shake the World is out. People are loving it, and we're going, "Well, that's cool." And in the interim period, I'm doing all the talking here, as you probably
Yeah.
noticed. in, in
It's
the in,
fine.
in the
Carry on.
interim period, Serafino comes back and he goes, "Listen, to keep the momentum, now would be a good time to get that solo record out." So I thought, I just don't know what to do, Tim, and that was the honest truth. So once we decided that we'd give it a shot, that's where I went back into looking at the guys I'd worked with, writing for like Survivor in my 6 years with
Yeah,
Survivor.
yeah.
And then I picked up Phil Lanzon and I went, "Oh, let's go back to Phil and Mick from Grand Prix and, you know, write something new, because Grand Prix will probably never see the light of day again." And so Phil and I wrote a song, and I wrote another one with Howard Leese, who was our musical director at the Vegas show. And of course, Howard spent all of those years with Hart and Paul Rogers. And anyway, we came up with a dozen songs, and everybody went, "Well, this is kind of cool." And then before you know it, there's another Black Swan with Generation Mind. And Generation Mind comes out, and now I'm sitting about to release a second,
Alive.
a second solo record. So I suppose it seems like it's like kind of really, really busy. But to stop talking and basically make a comment that it's the most fun time,
Yeah, yeah.
Tim, that I've ever had, productive or not. Um, it's the most fun. It's some of the, I think, the best music that I've been involved with, because I just love where it's all gone. And
Well,
so now I'll stop talking. And happy Valentine's Day, by the way.
well, I
Oh
was going
God.
to say the album Alive, your mantra of strong melody, big choruses. I mean, that just runs right the way through the DNA of this album.
Thank you, thank you. When we finished Standing on the Edge, I was actually on tour uh, for a big portion of last year with Schenker in Europe. And the producer, Alessandro Del Vecchio, he
Mm.
actually was performing with one of the Frontiers bands at the Sweden Festival. And we don't often get a chance to meet. And so we hooked up, and I went, "Hey, dude, I'm kind of late with this record. Should have been submitted in June." And he goes, "Yeah, well, if you're late, I'm late too, because I'm producing the damn thing." And we kind of chatted at length about where we wanted to take it. I was very insistent that I'd have the same musicians that I did on Standing on the Edge. And Andrea Cerveso he's just a great guitar player. And his sense of melody it's exactly what I like. And Nicholas Papafico on drums. We had the same lineup. Alessandro, of course, plays bass, and he plays keys, as well as produce and engineer and sweeps the floor and makes the coffee. And we wanted to kind of move forward from Standing on the Edge, because that was kind of a, let's see what we can do, song wise and writer wise. And we decided to kick this one a little harder, and they threw a barrel of songs at me. I listened to everything and then dwindled it down to a dozen, and there you have live, and I'm really happy with it. I had a huge amount of fun writing it and conjuring up the artwork because I love getting involved with the
Yeah,
covers.
yeah.